as a liaison between my neighborhoods, my district, and city administration, and also to provide creative ideas and leadership on the council as a whole, to look out for the neighborhoods in my district, to be sure their interests, their priorities, their concerns are represented always. Well, I'm not planning on running the whole city by myself, first of all, but I have had a little experience. I've been a professional in my field for 31 years, and I started out with a budget of $275, and 120 of that went to the typewriter contract. So I have been responsible. It grew, fortunately, from that number to several $1,000s, and now at LSUS I manage, I'm archival administrator of the regional archives, the Northwest Louisiana Archives. I have to manage a budget that provides for the resources we need to provide outreach to the community about our holdings, and also to preserve our holdings. And I have a professorship, the William B. Weiner Jr. Professorship, and I also have to manage how that professorship is spent. So, and I might add that I've been a wife and a mother and the manager of a household, so I have a little bit of familiarity with stretching a dollar. Well, first of all, I don't see it as a problem we can just fix, because it's accrued, for one thing, and I think a lot of the things that need to be done, that residents would like to see done, simply are not within the capacity of the city to do, at least not in the kind of time frame that expectations are geared to. But I do think that there are things we can do incrementally. I think the master plan, 2030 master plan, is a roadmap for that and can be used as a guide to prioritize. And I think it's important for us to tackle the things we can do and complete them, and then go to our citizens and our businesses and say, we have said we were going to do this, we did it. And that is going to help garner support for the city to do the next project. I think that we have a problem of a lot of apathy, and maybe born of some resentment, but also I don't think that we've done a great job. The city administration has done the best job it could of communicating with the citizens about the good and the bad, and I think that is the place to start, with communication. I think that supporting organizations like DDA are going to be very helpful in addressing those structural problems you're talking about, or I assume that you're talking about the buildings that need repair. And it's very clear from our own personal experiences that it's really difficult when you put off a problem so long that then you have to try to do it all at one time. And it's pretty obvious from firsthand experience that that is an inconvenience to everyone, and difficult for the city to do a good job of. Well, I think it's crucial. I think it's absolutely one of the three main responsibilities I think we have, and that is to create a city that is a more desirable place for people to come to, who want to come to and to stay in for citizens and businesses. It's kind of a big picture. And the City Council is responsible for seeing that we create that kind of incentive for people to come here and stay here, because since 2010 we've lost more population than we've lost in the previous 3 decades. And when people go, jobs go, and when businesses go, and when businesses go, jobs go, and when jobs go, people go, and it becomes a cycle. So I see the responsibility of every council member to work towards a livable, workable city that people want to live in, that corporations and businesses want to do business in, that we don't have to pay them to do business in, because my experience has been that that is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. I have to say that I really am not familiar with how these people got away with what they got away with. But I certainly think that I have served on a couple of boards that allocated funds. And I certainly think that questioning what people are doing before they receive any sort of taxpayer money or city funding is essential, and that they have what any business proposal would require, and that is a goal, a mission, a timeline, and what they intend to accomplish and how they intend to accomplish it. And of course, there's always, I don't know that background checks are always that helpful in situations like some of the ones we've had. Of course, the next time around, I guess they will be. Well, I think the first thing to do would be to see whether or not the person's education and background matches with whatever the job is they want to do. And I presume there is some sort of evaluation process similar to any other hiring procedure. When we have on occasion hired people in archives at LSUS, we have usually had some sort of idea of what we were looking for, and so when we interviewed people, we looked at their written application to see whether they could put a sentence together, and what their written communication skills were, and then also an interview to see how they conducted themselves in the interview, and whether or not they were interested in what we wanted them to accomplish and compatible with the other members of the staff. I think it's one of the crucial things to success in employing someone is that they are able to get along and work well with the rest of the staff, in addition to being qualified for the job they're being hired for. Well, I'll start with the last one. I think that the City Council, as city government as a whole, needs to communicate better with the community. I've knocked some doors in several different neighborhoods, and that's what I hear in every single one of them. So I don't think that it's just somebody with an axe to grind. That's what people feel like, that they aren't being given the real skinny, right? So I think that's crucial. And I think that the city councilors, I think it's helpful to keep in mind that we are all there representing our neighborhoods in our district, but that our ultimate goal is to lift up our whole city. So we all have a common interest, and my role is to bring ideas to the table and listen to other people's ideas and work out which ones we can do. I am all about doing what we can do. I don't think we're going to cure all the ills of society in 1 year, but I think there are incremental steps we can take, and I see myself as bringing my own knowledge and experience, and I've had some of it over the years to the table. Well, as I mentioned before, I think it's an overarching problem, and all of the others are kind of related to it. And that is that we need to be involved in our community. We need to look at, we have a master plan, and I think we need to use it. If a great deal of information was gathered in the process of developing that plan. A lot of people had interest, stakeholders had an opportunity for input. We've come up with it, and now I think that it's useful to follow it. And I'm sorry, will you remind me what else you
I'll
asked?
just reread it.
Okay.
In your view, what is the most challenging issue facing our community, and how will you, as a member of the City Council, work to address it?
Yes. As I said, I think communication is probably the overarching problem. Obviously, we have some others that are all, if they're not the cause, then they are affected by poor communication. But it's obvious, because we are losing population, that we need to do something differently than we have been doing for at least the past 30 years. And so I think there are a number of ways we can look at that. We are not able to take care of our infrastructure in even our core neighborhoods, but we continue to sprawl. And that is a recipe for people. We just incorporate more people to be mad because they're not getting what they want. So I think that we have been given some good ideas. I attended the Reform Shreveport, the Cultivate Collaborative program on Friday. I heard a lot that's familiar to me because of communities I've lived in before that dealt with many of the same problems. And I think we have a lot of good ideas, but I think we need to pay attention to them and to the research that's being done on managing suburban sprawl, on adjusting to a new environment, which we are most definitely in. We are in a technological environment, and change is going to come whether we control it or whether we become victims of it. Well, I think the priorities of the City Council should be whatever the priorities of the citizens they represent are, number one. And the citizens that I've talked to in my district's priorities have been, virtually without exception, neighborhood security and safety, better communication between City Hall and the neighborhoods, and economic growth. And I really believe that all three of those are tied together. And when you take care of the first two, it really helps the third one. So that is what I intend to focus on in the City Council, and I intend to stay regularly in touch on at least a quarterly basis with neighborhood groups to let them know what is happening and give them an opportunity to let me know what their priorities are. We have a code of ethics in my profession, and I will just give you one example because it's pretty long. part of our mission is to collect the papers of individuals and the records of organizations. We have a collection policy which limits the scope of what we collect. And to give you a very simple example, we have an archives at Northwestern State University in Natchitoches. We have an archives at Louisiana Tech. And they each have a collecting scope. When someone brings something to me that I know does not really fall within our collecting scope, but it does in the collecting scope of another organization, I do not see them as a competitor. I see them as a fellow promoter of historic preservation and documentation. And so I would feel that ethically it is, no matter how exciting and wonderful or valuable that collection is, that it is my professional ethical duty to refer them to the repository that is where that their material is within that collecting scope. So that's just one example. Well, I'm very honored and very pleased and excited to be a part of the political process. I've been involved in public service, community service. My husband used to say, I'm working my life away and Mom is giving her life away. So it's an honor and a pleasure for me, and I've enjoyed every minute of it so far.